Why Squid Game Conquered the World. Learning Advanced Chinese Through Global Media. Introduction. In September 2021, a Korean television series appeared on the streaming platform Netflix. At first glance, it looked unusual. Hundreds of desperate contestants in green tracksuits compete in a series of children's games. But the twist is brutal. If they lose, they die. The series quickly became one of the biggest global television events in history. Squid Game. In Chinese it is called
鱿鱼游戏.
Within weeks it became the most watched non-English show ever released on Netflix. Viewers from the United States to Brazil, from India to Germany, all became fascinated by this strange Korean drama. Children imitated the games. Fashion brands copied the green tracksuits. Memes spread across social media. Suddenly, Squid Game was everywhere. But today we are going to explore something different. We are going to ask, how do Chinese scholars analyze Squid Game? And along the way we will learn a large number of Chinese academic expressions used in media studies, sociology, and cultural analysis. Expressions like
跨文化传播,
cross-cultural communication,
文化共鸣,
cultural resonance, and
平台经济学.
platform economics. By the end of this episode, you will not only understand why Squid Game became a global phenomenon, but you will also gain a powerful toolkit of advanced Chinese vocabulary used in academic writing. We draw on a 2026 article titled, A Brief Analysis of the Success of the Squid Game from the Dual Drivers of Cultural Resonance and Commercial Innovation by
李思义,
Anne.
金爱花.
Segment 1. The Rise of Cultural Intellectual Property, IP. To begin, we need to understand an important concept in Chinese cultural industries.
文化,
IP, cultural intellectual property. In Chinese media studies, IP does not simply mean copyright. Instead, it refers to a story world capable of generating value across many industries: films, television series, video games, merchandise, theme parks, online communities. This long-term commercial development is called IP.
运营,
IP operation or IP management. Another phrase used by scholars is
现代,
IP.
属性,
Modern IP characteristics. This describes content that can easily expand across multiple platforms. In the digital age, a successful story no longer lives only on television. It spreads across social media, gaming platforms, fashion brands, and consumer culture. Chinese scholars describe this process using a vivid phrase,
价值裂变,
value fission. Just like a nuclear reaction, the value of the story multiplies as it spreads through the media ecosystem. Another key expression is
传播生态,
communication ecosystem. This refers to the network of platforms, audiences, and creators that together produce cultural influence. When a piece of content becomes extremely popular within this ecosystem, Chinese scholars often call it
现象级传播.
phenomenon-level communication. Squid Game clearly reached this level. Segment 2. Cultural resonance across the world. Now we come to one of the central ideas in the Chinese academic analysis. Why did audiences across the world feel so connected to this story? The answer lies in the concept of
文化共鸣,
cultural resonance. Cultural resonance occurs when a story reflects emotions and experiences shared by people across different societies. Another expression used to describe this process is
跨文化情感连结.
cross-cultural emotional connection. In the article, this phenomenon is explained using an influential cultural theory,
霍夫斯泰德文化维度理论.
Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory. This theory examines how cultural values differ across societies. For example, some cultures emphasize individual freedom, others emphasize collective responsibility. In Chinese academic language, collectivism is described as
集体主义.
Another important cultural dimension is
不确定性规避.
uncertainty avoidance. This describes how comfortable people feel when facing unpredictable futures. Think about the world today. Economic uncertainty, rising living costs, intense competition. Many viewers feel they are living in a giant survival game. Squid Game captures this feeling perfectly. Segment 3. Compressed modernity and Korean society. To understand Squid Game fully, we must also examine its social context. Chinese scholars often describe South Korea using the concept
压缩现代性.
compressed modernity. This term describes societies that modernize extremely rapidly. In only a few decades, South Korea transformed from a poor agricultural country into a high-tech industrial economy. But this rapid development created enormous social pressure. Another term often used is
社会分化
social differentiation. As economies grow quickly, the gap between social classes often widens. This leads to
贫富差距
wealth inequality. One result is growing pressure on young people. In South Korea, young adults developed expressions describing the sacrifices required by modern life. For example,
三抛
3 abandonments. This means giving up 1 dating, 2 marriage, and 3 having children. Later the phrase expanded to
五抛
and even.
七抛
These expressions reflect the intense economic pressure facing younger generations. Chinese scholars describe such situations as
青年困境
youth dilemma. The main character in Squid Game represents exactly this struggle. He is drowning in debt. He cannot support his family. His future seems hopeless. This situation is described in Chinese as
生存困境
survival dilemma. Segment 4. Global inequality. While Squid Game is rooted in Korean society, its themes resonate globally. One of the central themes is economic inequality. Chinese scholars describe this using the term
贫富分化
wealth polarization. Another famous concept used to explain inequality is
马太效应
the Matthew effect. The phrase comes from the Bible and means the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. In many modern economies, wealth accumulates among a small elite. Chinese academic writing often describes this phenomenon as
阶层固化
class stratification becoming rigid. In Squid Game, the wealthy, very important persons, VIP spectators, represent this global elite. They treat the competition as entertainment. For them, human suffering becomes a spectacle. Chinese scholars describe such narratives as
社会现实映射
a reflection of social reality. Segment 5. The platform economy. The article also analyzes Squid Game from a business perspective. Here we encounter an important field of study,
平台经济学
platform economics. Digital platforms like Netflix connect creators, audiences, advertisers, and investors. This creates what Chinese scholars call
多边市场
multi-sided markets. In such markets, the value of a platform increases as more users join. Netflix used a strategy described as
本土优先加全球布局
local priority plus global strategy. The company invests heavily in local storytelling, then distributes these stories worldwide. Another phrase used to describe the platform environment is
内容生态
content ecosystem. Within this ecosystem, stories can spread rapidly across media channels. Segment 6. Marketing and global expansion. Once Squid Game became popular, its creators expanded the brand through marketing. Chinese scholars describe immersive promotional experiences using the term
沉浸式体验
immersive experience. Examples include interactive exhibitions, theme parks, real-time game recreations. Another marketing strategy is
品牌联名
brand collaboration. Fashion companies release Squid Game clothing, restaurants created themed menus, toy manufacturers produced collectible figures. All of these activities transform cultural influence into economic value. Chinese scholars call this
商业变现
commercial monetization. Segment 7. The balance between local and global. The final lesson of the article concerns the balance between local culture and global appeal. Successful international stories must combine two qualities. First,
文化本土性
cultural locality. Stories must reflect real experiences from a particular society. Second,
文化世界性
cultural universality. Stories must express emotions that audiences everywhere can understand. Chinese scholars describe this balance as
本土性与全球性的统一
the unity of the local and the global. Squid Game achieved this balance perfectly. Conclusion. What began as a Korean television series soon became a global cultural event. But through the lens of Chinese academic analysis, we can see something deeper. We see how modern media operates through
跨文化传播
cross-cultural communication,
文化共鸣
cultural resonance, and
平台经济学
platform economics. In other words, Squid Game is not just a television show. It is a window into the dynamics of global culture in the 21st century. And perhaps that is the true lesson of this story. The games may be fictional, but the social realities they reflect are very real indeed. Stay connected.